Hey guys, so I just got back from the RC field and had quite an experience. If any of you have seen the video I've posted on the flight for the F7F Tiger Cat, you'll have seen my brownout where I was going up into a half Cuban and lost signal right at the peak of my invert loop, and the plane just immediately cut throttle, everything else, and just spiraled into the ground. I've had brownouts happen before, but usually it's for like a second, like a literal second, and then it recovers. This one was like for a solid maybe 2.5 seconds. And I was like, this plane's done. This is my brand new plane. I've only flown 3 or 4 times. It's going to hit the ground. And I recovered signal just in time to crank that elevator back. And that plane literally cleared the ground by inches, maybe 5 inches. No joke, no exaggeration. I was extremely lucky. I immediately put the retracts down and landed. What was the problem? Obviously, there's no way to know for sure. I think it's one of three potential things. Number one, signal interference or just atmospheric interference, whatever in the environment. That's always a factor. I don't think that's a problem here. The two I think are more likely are my transmitter, which is an IX12, which is an old transmitter. Maybe the radio link is going out and it's just not working as strong as it used to. I've had a couple of Spectrum transmitters, and I hate to say it, but they all have done this. I had a DX7 that kind of did that. Like, I'd get brownouts on planes that I've owned for years, and like a brownout here, a brownout there, all recoverable, all were fine until one day I was flying my DO335. I had a brownout and it did not come back. The plane smacked into the asphalt and exploded. And I looked at my transmitter and the little orange light that usually is on was off, even though the screen was on. I later found out, that was on a DX7, by the way. I later found out that little orange light indicates the radio. So if that's off, your radio is dead. Sent it to Horizon. Sure enough, the radio module had died and failed. So those brownouts were maybe an indicator of potential failure coming up. So where am I going with this? That could be the IX12. It could be going through that issue. The interesting thing is I sent my IX12 in 2 or 3 years ago during the off season, literally just to have them look it over, and they said they replaced the radio then. So it should be a relatively new radio in that radio. But that's always a potential. But what I think the main issue is, and the whole point of this post, are my Lemon receivers. I've been flying in the hobby a long time, but I got really into it in like 2012, 2013. So a little over 10 years, 12 years, I've been really deep into the hobby. I started with Spectrum like everyone else, but pretty quick I started using orange receivers from Hobby King. And as soon as gyros and stuff started becoming mainstream, I started putting like the standalone gyros and things, and it really helped make the planes fly smoother. Great. About 8-9 years ago, Lemon introduced their Generation 1 Lemon all-in-one stabilizer receiver. This is a basically DSMX receiver that also had stabilization built in a really small form factor. I guess I should be specific. The very first Lemons did not come with this case. It literally was a circuit board. So let's call that Gen 1. The one I have here in my hand is a Gen, I'm going to call it 1.1. It has the single antenna on top. And then somewhere, I want to say 2018, 19, maybe around then, they introduced this one. Lemon, let's just call this 1.2. Has 2 antennas on top. Has everything else is almost the same. They made a version of this that had like auto level, and it was horrible auto level, like the worst I've ever seen. It was actually so bad I would immediately tell people never use it. In the same flight, you might have perfectly level, and then like you fly a minute, and then you hit the switch again, and now it's pointing half down. Anyway, I'm not going to rant on that. That's not what this is about. So all of these planes I've flown, my Tiger Cat that nearly crashed. I flew my T-33 a couple of flights, two flights that day. First flight was fine. Second flight had a half-second brownout. What did I have in there? The 1.2, the Generation 1.5 receiver, whatever this one is. What did my old Tiger Cat that I've flown for 6-7 years now without a single issue have? Version 1. or this one with the single antenna in the case. And this isn't new. I would say as early as, I love, so just so you know, this one, the single antenna one, the old school one, I highly recommended these. I was an avid supporter of these. The price point was great. They flew great. I had no trouble ever with these. But then starting 2018-19, when they introduced that new model with the twin diversity antennas and all that, they went away with this, by the way. You couldn't buy this one at that point. It was no longer available. They only offered this or that plus model that was garbage. And I started noticing little weird things. At first, it wasn't brownouts at first, but like I'll fly my EDF jets, and during a flight, once every 2 or 3 flights, I'd be flying and you'd hear the jet going, and then it would cut out for like not even a second, like a third of a second, and then come right back. And at first you're like, is that just me? Am I mishearing it? But then people in the field would be like, did you do that? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And what was the common thing? They all had those Gen 1.5 lemons. It was a minor thing because I always had control. It was a weird thing. I always had control of the plane. It wasn't a brownout. It was just the motor blipped, and I don't know why. Still don't. So I didn't know what the issue was. I thought maybe it was a weird circumstances. I've tried the capacitors, just so you know. I have tried capacitors. That doesn't seem to make a difference. I kept buying them because my fleet kept growing and I needed more receivers, and they didn't have the old lemons, and I'm not paying Spectrum's $60 price point for a non-stabilized like 6-channel receiver. So that brings me to today, where it's been a long time, and I will say they don't sell these anymore. The Gen 1.5s I'm complaining about, these guys, they're not for sale anymore. They have a new, let's just call them a Generation 2 lemon. And I don't have enough experience with those to pass judgment. I have 2 of their 10-channel, the new 10-channel lemons. You've seen me complain about the layout of those. I got pins on each side. Absolutely stupid design. I don't know why they did it. But for functionality, I can't give a recommendation one way or the other. I don't have enough experience. I mostly just wanted to warn people that I used to be a huge advocate for lemon, the old stuff. But I guess just think of it as this. I'll boil it down to this. If you see one of these for sale, I wouldn't get it. I would skip it. Don't even bother. Pay a little bit more and buy a brand new Gen 2 lemon, the ones that are currently for sale. Or if you see one of these old ones with a single antenna, maybe pick one of those up. These have been very reliable. But these, they started off kind of bad, and I'll be honest, COVID just made them 1,000 times worse. The ones I've gotten post-COVID are they're really junk. I don't think I'd use them in anything more than like a $50 or $60 plane. And yeah, so if you're wondering what happened with my A10 a few months back where I had that signal drop, this Flightline F7F Tiger Cat and the T33, all of them have had signal blackouts for more than a second, and all of them are on those lemons. So this isn't an anti-lemon post. It is saying that those, which admittedly are discontinued, they're no longer actively selling them. But hey, if you're at a swap meet or something, you see some of those with the 2 antennas, I wouldn't bother with them. It's just not worth the risk to your plane. So there you go. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be pulling these out of most of my aircraft if I have them. And I'm going to start replacing them with the Gen 2 lemons. And let's hope those prove more reliable. If they don't, then I don't know. We'll have to see what other options are out there. I know there's standalone gyros you can get. So you can get like an orange receiver with a standalone gyro. The few times I've used those, I haven't been in love with them, truth be told. They take up a lot more space too, but maybe that's the option. So we'll see what I do. Hopefully you appreciate this information and it saves some of you guys your airframe. Take care, and talk to you later.